What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Dwell Podcast. This is the podcast that is dedicated to inspiring and activating church creatives and leaders. My name is Ryan Romeo, and I am here with my good friend, Cliff Cesar. How are you, Cliff?
Yeah, I'm good, man. How are you?
I'm doing great.
I'm doing really well.
Yeah, we are, so we're on staff together
Yes.
at Living Streams.
Yeah.
And I've known Cliff for a long time. We met, actually, the first time I did an outcry here, right?
Yeah, it was 2015.
2015,
Yeah.
we're at the basketball arena.
Basketball arena.
Yep.
Met in the pastor's kind of connect.
Yes.
At the end. Yeah.
Yeah. And it was like the most thrown together pastor's thing ever.
It was chaos, but it was good, man. I
remember it was like, hey, we're going to do a pastor's thing in like 10 minutes. And then I ran over there and there was like nothing set up or anything. And there was like 10 of us. I was like, hey, this is all right.
Hey,
we're just going to pray.
You know, sometimes, being
out.
simple is it, bro.
Yeah,
like,
that's
it was,
right.
we got to like hold hands back where we can touch.
Yes, back when we were like, yeah.
Well, not
around
touch.
each
That's
other.
kind of weird. But
Yeah,
back when we can hold hands.
Human contact.
Yeah,
It was
human
like,
contact.
okay,
That's what it
yes,
is.
yeah.
Normalcy.
Yeah. So, but then Cliff came on and started helping us with online campus right before COVID.
Man, like maybe a month before.
Yeah.
And it was chaos in the beginning.
Yeah.
Now we're running smooth now.
Yeah.
But yeah, man, it was the world just shut down. I remember like having my getting on staff here, then having to navigate through a different kind of like live stream company and things like that.
Yeah, we changed companies.
Then we changed companies that Friday, and that Sunday I had my daughter's first birthday party, and that Monday the world shut down.
It's crazy.
Yeah, it was crazy.
And I know it's one of those things everybody listening knows. I mean, if you were in church leadership during 2020, you know, if you were alive in 2020, you know. But yeah, we were changing stuff. You came in, changed companies, and luckily we already had some sort of live stream stuff set up.
Stuff going. It was like touch and go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But we just learned so much. And I still remember when we did that those first few weeks, we would all show up and we'd be like scanning our forehead to see if we had a fever. There'd be just like a few of us super spread out.
Yeah.
And we were going live, and I remember there was just like keys that you couldn't hear in the room.
Yeah.
And so if you're preaching to this silent room, and we turned the sanctuary into Studio A is what we called it, Dalton had SDI cables running all over our pews. Yeah.
Pews.
It was crazy.
Balcony.
But what's some of the things for you, when you look back on that season? Like, oh my gosh, I just made a super loud noise. I'm so sorry, Dalton. He's got his headphones on. He heard my weird throat thing. So what's something for you, though? We learned a lot. Sometimes it's kind of hard to boil down. What did we learn in 2020? It's probably, one of the most discussed things. But in terms of digital content, what was one of the things, for you that you were like, this was huge?
Man, I think, like I said, changing companies in the middle of that, that was a huge move for us because our last company that we were using was kind of unstable. They were going through transition and it would just fall off. And
it was real hit and miss.
It was really hit and miss. So, that was the one big move we had to make to get some stability.
Yeah.
So,
that was a great call.
Yeah.
In hindsight.
Yeah. It's like, oh, man, I'm glad we did that.
Yeah.
And stability is one of the main keys, because if you don't have stability in your live stream, people will fall off and they will start, checking out other churches or some people who are super dedicated won't have church that Sunday if we fall off. So that was a big thing for me. I was like, we have to get this up and going so our people that are behind the screens can have church, can listen.
And I think for churches, it's so easy to be like, we got to invest in great cameras. We got to invest in great audio. All of that stuff is true. But if people are losing your live stream all the time because it's very, inconsistent, it doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter. You could have a $5,000, what we got, Ursa Red or whatever it's called.
Yeah.
And you know, if you got
Red is
a
too
crappy,
fancy,
if you got a crappy live stream feed, and it just won't work, bro.
Yeah.
They would just leave. Like, oh, the vision is clear, but no, I
but
can't,
they-
I can't see it. Keeps jumping in and out.
And
or,
we would have it drop.
Yeah.
I mean, it happened all the time where it's like in the middle of the service, it would just drop out. And so a lot of the things that we went into, and this was just not, it's one of those things for church leaders, it's not fun to talk about.
no.
But infrastructure is so important.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things that whenever I talk to the elders about something like this, and our church, we have to do that. If we have a big expenditure, we got to put together, some sort of project, and sit in front of the elders and go, this is what we want to do. And it's so unfun to go, we need to spend thousands of dollars on SDI.
That's why you're the
cable.
boss and not me.
And even before the SDI cable,
Yeah.
it's like we need to spend thousands of dollars to make sure that we don't lose internet connection. So Arthur Lee on our staff, he set up this amazing dual system where we have 2 different internet companies. This is for the nerds out there that
Fiber
care about
optics
this.
and all that, yeah.
We have 2 different companies, and if one company gets slow, our system automatically transfers to
Our
the
backup
faster
system,
one. So we have 2 different companies that we're doing, and you don't skip a beat. Like you just shift to the new company. That is something where you need experts. You need, IT people that really know what they're doing.
Thank
But
God for Arthur.
Stability is everything.
Yeah, stability
It
is
really
everything. And like I said, if you don't have stability, you don't have a live stream.
Yes, absolutely.
It just goes out, and then you lose your congregation.
Yeah.
In 2020, that was important because that's all we had.
Yeah.
We had people on staff, which were like the 5-6 of us that came in on Sundays and Saturdays and Fridays who worked.
Yeah.
And then our 1,600 people or congregation, they all met online. So we had to give them something that was stable.
Yeah.
And like if it's not stable, then we just lost.
And I think for smaller churches, it's so important. If that's something that you're dealing with, you have to take care of foundational things first. So making sure that you have stability on your live stream is absolutely
It's
everything.
built like building a house on concrete and not saying, what's that? The 3 Little Pigs?
Yeah.
The internet wolf come blow it down.
Or Jesus, when he's building on the rock.
Yeah. You build this house.
Not to talk about. So the internet in this is the rock, not Jesus. But okay, I'll move on now.
Upon my Google, I will build this rock.
But you need that stability, absolutely, first and foremost. Yeah. Okay, then once you get that, it's like, okay, we're live streaming, we've got all the infrastructure there. Then what? And I think that's where a lot of churches are at. If you've got that stability, if you've got that going, now you need to look at your services. You need to look at the content of what you're making and going, is this resonating with people online?
Before that, because you're really right. Before that, I would say consistency is next. Because you can have stability, but then people are like, can I trust this week? Can I trust this next week? Yeah. So once you get into a rhythm of like 3 or 4 Sundays of consistency, then I would move on to what you're talking about.
Absolutely. Yeah. And even for us, when we were going into that stability, I still remember Easter, we were like on the phone early in the morning. And
at 7:50, like, all right, is it going? You got 10 minutes.
It's stressful. When your whole life, you're like, our whole Easter service is online. I'm thankful we're not doing that this year. But absolutely, consistency is everything. I always talk about this with podcasting. So when they say podcasters, when they start a podcast, like 80% of them stop after the first month or something like that. Like an insanely high number of people. And then after the first year, it's something like 95% of podcasters stop. They can't keep it up for the long haul.
I never knew
and
that.
Consistency is everything.
Yeah.
And so I was talking to somebody recently that was like, hey, I really want to start a podcast. I'm like, okay, awesome, great. How often are you going to do it?
Yeah.
And they're like, we're going to go every single week. And I was like, are you sure? If you do that, great, awesome. But do it every week. Yeah. And even for me, I'm real consistent with things. And I'll have things come up and I'm like, crap, this is like, it's a rule for me where I'm like, if I need to stay up late or whatever, if I need to rearrange my schedule, because consistency is so key. If people are listening every week and then you skip a week, it's like, oh no. So for that sort of thing, it's like for our live stream audience, you have to be hitting it every single week.
Because the people, they're traumatized from what happened in the past, you know? It's like, oh man, can I trust this? It looks good this week. What about next week? You know, I was like that with a previous church I was attending. It was like, oh man, it's good this week, but Facebook is down or YouTube is down. It's like, oh man, I don't get to get church or service today, you know? But now we've been consistent for a year now. Maybe had 2 hiccups. And, you know, and I thank the Lord. The company that we're rolling with, they have a 24-hour, you know, tech service, customer service, and they help you right on the spot, man. I love who we with. I wish we could say the name, but we don't promote people. But I love who we with. You can hit us, DM.
Yeah, DM Cliff if you want to know who we're using.
Hit us in the DMs and we'll tell you who.
Yeah, they're a great company. But that consistency is really, really important. And I think then you get into this realm where, like for our church, we've experienced when we did that, we coupled it with some of the things we're going to talk about here in a little bit of how do you make your services, how do you raise the quality of your services. But after we invested in internet, after we invested in SDI and all of that sort of stuff, our video director, Dalton, came to me and was like, we got to change cameras, you know.
Love that.
And there's that sort of level of like, okay, you know, we're doing things. This is again all the technical back end of what we're doing, but
just keep tracking with us.
Keep tracking with us. We'll get to the other stuff. But it's like we made that jump. It's funny, that prosumer jump of like $1,000 camera to like the professional jump to like a $5,000 camera.
It hurts.
It hurts. It hurts. And we got one of those cameras. And then we like saved up, talked to the elders, and we got a second one of those cameras, you know, and slowly we replaced all of our prosumer, just kind of point and shoot sort of cameras with actual high quality cameras. And that was really important. And we had to couple that with stage lighting, some things like that, that we had to start looking at and going, we need to see people. You need that sort of quality to rise up. And that was something else that we invested in.
Yeah. I mean, it's literally like building a house, building a church, you know, start off with the foundation, then you can start getting the good stuff. You know, I know Dalton was really happy once we started getting those cameras in, you know, he was like a kid in the candy store.
Nodding right now. He's nodding right
and now, man, if you look at our live stream, it is sick, you know, like we was talking about investing in cameras and investing in, you know, infrastructure. And I think the next step after that, you know, Dalton started investing in people. Because when he started bringing people onto the team, now we got these cool angles. Our live stream was looking good. You know, we're hitting shots that we've never seen before from behind. Like handheld shots. It started.
All of that stuff really changed. Our frame rate. Maybe one of these days, Dalton, we need to actually do a video podcast. Because there's a lot of things. We've changed our frame rates. We didn't do 60 frames, which you would think, oh, the bigger number's better. We went with like a little bit more of a cinematic sort of thing. But all of that stuff played into the look and feel of what we were doing on Sunday morning. Now, if what you're doing on Sunday morning is not up to that sort of quality, we were just talking about it before this. It's like content is king. So preaching, worship, making sure you're considering people online, that is so important. You could have the best, highest quality stuff in the world, but if you're not matching it with something in terms of content, then it just really rings shallow. You know.
And I totally agree.
So one of the things that we did early on was we started trying to change the habits of our pastoral team. So. And I'm still not great at this. But I try really hard. But we would really try to tell our pastoral team, hey, when you're getting up there, you're leading worship. When you're preaching, when you're doing announcements, make sure you say, hey, online people, we see you. We're so excited that you're here. Like, even just a little moment of that can go a long way.
Big key, engagement.
Engagement.
That's where it starts. After you build all of your infrastructure, the next step is engagement. You know, our pastoral team, welcome online family, you know, saying those keywords, making them feel like they're here with us, you know, asking them to stand up and crack a little joke. Like, if you're in your pajamas, we don't care, you know, get up and worship with us, you know, doing things like that. Let them know we see you. We know you're at home, but you're a person behind that screen or you're a family behind that screen. So engaging with them saying hi. We on the back end side, which is myself and Alec, we engage by comments. Even before Alec was on the team, we still had our pastoral team, inside the comments, just welcoming people, saying hi to people. I did some snooping on some people's profiles. I saw birthdays, and then when I would see them come online, I'll say like, "Hey, happy belated birthday," or "I saw you got married," or blah blah blah, or "You just had a baby. How you doing?" Making something really big feel really small. That's engagement is really key when you're doing that type of thing online.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And I think just changing that sort of habit for pastoral teams, because it's easy. It's always the case. It's like what you see in front of your face tends to take the priority. So you stand up on platform. You're talking to people, you're looking them in the eye. They're either laughing or not laughing at your jokes. It's like that sort of understanding, like it's really clear. But then when you're looking at a piece of glass in the back of the room, you're going, it's really hard to engage with that. Man. But it doesn't take much. It really doesn't. Like a phrase here or there to engage, And I think that for me, one of the times that I got the most sensitive to it was whenever I was out on tour, and I would be in my tour bus going to church, and I'm by myself. I'm in a weird city. Yeah. I've got a couple of hours to watch services, and I would sit in my bunk, or I'd lay in my bunk and I'd watch on my phone. And I remember taking notes going, this feels so claustrophobic. Like I'm just only seeing the people on stage. I'm never seeing the room. There were certain things that I was like, it feels real sterile. Why can't I engage with it? Those sort of things, I think, to be able to pop out, see it from the outside, and understand that engagement is so important. So even when you're watching on a phone, when somebody's like, hey, you watching at home, this is something you could do, or hey, welcome, that changes everything. It's just like everything shifts in you, and you're like, oh, now I'm part of this. Now I'm a part of what's going on.
Now you're feeling at home. Now you're feeling a part of the community. Now you're feeling like, it never left, even though you've left the building. Church has never left. Now it feels way more home feel. I think engagement is pretty much the what's the word I'm looking for? It's pretty much the kind of like the overarching, kind of like the big grandiose thing you have to do. Above all things, people will love engagement more than they would love worship or the message, just because sometimes people come to church just to commune. They just come to church just to sit with friends and be in the ambience, and we wanted to create that same environment, even though you're at home, but we want you to feel like you're here. We want a quote unquote digital courtyard, and allow you to like have this family feel, like virtual. We was doing virtual high fives, virtual hugs, things like that, fist bumps, what we would do in service, but digitally.
Absolutely, So we've got engagement being so key, building solid infrastructure. What comes next? What to you is like, this is also really important?
We got the word simplicity, which is key, but I just call it not doing too much. That's to me is just when you overdo things, you lose people as well. So we kept it simple. I loved it when we were doing it in studio. We moved from Studio A to Studio B, and when we got into Studio B, our engagement started going up. Because now they're feeling more at home. It looks more intimate. Worship was like scaled down to just a drummer and a guitar player with not even a drum. Was it like a cajon or something it was cajon and the guitar,
or even digital stuff.
The digital.
Dalton's like, I don't remember.
But
the brain forgets pain, so we've blocked that season. A little PTSD on that.
Once we started doing that, man, our engagement shot through the roof. It felt more in home. It felt like David, you, and I think Veronica did a piece too, where it felt like you're in the room, you're in the house with me. So being simplicity is super key when it comes to online community. Not doing too much.
And we would pay attention to things like engagement with worship. It's like after about 20 minutes, people started disengaging, and there's a balance there. Obviously, it's like you want your culture to be retained. We have a big culture that really values worship. We've always really valued worship, But in that context, in that environment, it's like, okay, you're sitting at home and you're watching on your TV with your family or something. It's a really different thing. So we started limiting worship. We started really trying to get everything down into like a 1 hour service. Before it's like an hour and 15-minute service, and we're like, let's try to get it down to 1 hour,
We even scaled it back down to 50 minutes at once.
Yes.
Yeah, we were doing so good because we stay up with the metrics and the analytics, and we have that in the background of our company. You can slide in our DMs to find out about. And they gave us in the analytics, and it was showing us that people were only watching for this amount of time, or they would stay on for like this amount and then fall off. And we started like tailor our services to that. And even overall across the board, when everybody was online, we saw a big number of churches that was like an hour and a half, scale it down to 60 minutes because people, they weren't staying on that long, Our attention spans, I mean, we're a microwave society now. Like we want everything quick. We want the Lord to hit us quick. We want everything fast. So we had to scale it down. We brought it down to 50 minutes at one time, and it was like beautiful.
And then, so we've got simplicity, keeping it simple. The last thing in terms of the nuts and bolts of live stream, what else would be that last thing for you that's like, this is really important?
Innovation.
Yeah.
I think innovation is big, always learning. Like we were saying, looking at metrics and analytics, kind of tailoring our services to what's going on with our personal community. Don't look at anybody else. Don't try to duplicate like the bigger churches. I'm not going to name them the bigger churches, and compare what you're doing with. I call it comparing their highlight reels to your behind the scenes. Don't do that. Tailor to your community and what's going on in your house. So being innovative, always learning, our community, our congregation and what they're feeling and what they're doing. Kind of, staying on trend, but not too much where it drifts away from what your culture is.
Yes.
So I would say always learn, always ask questions, like, hey, when I would see somebody at the store at a Walmart or something like that, I would say, hey, how'd you like service? Did you watch? And they would say, yeah. I'm like, what did you feel about it? What you think about what was going on? Oh, I really love the intimacy feel when y'all moved from the church to the other room. It felt like a living room, things like that. Once you start engaging and asking those questions within your community, I think you would keep pushing and keep moving forward. Yeah. Just always learning.
Yeah. And I think learning how your team does it. Yeah. And this is so key. And something we've talked a lot about on this podcast, we'll keep coming back to because I think we're all just really passionate about it. But we get inspiration from other churches, but we've really worked hard to match what it is that our community looks and feels like. And again, Dalton was so key in this and going, hey, look, we've got this sort of the way that our worship is, it's not completely perfect. So our camera angles have to kind of match that. So there was this hand motion that was going into it, especially when we had a lot of acoustic sets and everything else. It matched the look and feel of what was going on. Even changing our frame rate, that's something that I look around at a lot of churches. I'm like, that's really unique to us. And Dalton can attest, it was not an easy thing to change. We went through a lot of work to just change our frame rate to this like thematic sort of, cinematic.
You know what was crazy though?
Live stream.
Our live stream company that you can DM us in our DMs and find out what the name is, can handle our frame rate. Like it was only 2 that they can handle. Yeah. It was, I think it was like 29.9 or something like that. And then 23.3. And we not dumbed it down, but we scaled it down to the 23.3. And it was beautiful after that. I was like, we can do that. And it just,
that cinematic look, and this is where creativity, it's like there's so many moments where you're like, is it worth all this? We could just let it go. And no, we pushed it. And we tried to match it in terms of our, pro presenter, all these things had to work together. And there's this creativity in each one of your churches that you really have to dig down and go, who are we? How do we match the look and feel from our pastor? How do we match the look and feel for our worship? How do we really dovetail with that in a way that feels like us? Because at the end of the day, this is church. Like this is, and we're talking about a lot of nuts and bolts in terms of live stream today, which is fun. But the overall vision is, hey, we want people in community. We want people worshiping God. We want people interacting with the Holy Spirit and understanding how they're designed and understanding that they have a mission on their life. And everything that we do is geared toward accomplishing that.
Yeah.
You know, not just checking the box off like, hey, we got great engagement today, or we got great, like, why did we get great engagement? Where are we pushing it toward? And you and I have talked a lot about this, like taking a step back, maybe a little more mile high view. Like, for a long time, churches did not value online ministry. And it was like, you know, and they would use words like, it's not the real world.
Yeah.
And I get that. And we're gonna balance this conversation in a second. But there is value to online church.
Yeah.
And it's one of those things that it's like, it's on us right now. I always thought, it's like if the church saw the printing press and was like, no, we're not going to jump on that, because that's not how we normally do it. You know, this is a revolution. We're in the middle of this revolutionary period in society where we're in the digital communication revolution. It's changing society. It's changing on us all the time. And if we want the next generation, if we want people engaged, we have to do digital content.
Yeah, we have to meet them where they're at.
Yeah.
And a lot of our, excuse me, you can cut that out. No, don't leave that in there. Okay.
No, we won't cut it out. We'll leave it. No, we don't cut anything out.
Straight raw, just put it in there.
I mean, last one, I think Nathan said ass or something, ass off or something. and I just repeated it. That we didn't cut it out.
Wait.
Yeah. Yeah.
Y'all didn't catch me, and I'm glad. Anyway.
Yeah. And then there's been a lot. I mean, really, I could blame Nathan for 90% of any of the
paving the way,
of the near
innovative.
Yes, innovative. That's what it is. Yeah. So no, we're not cutting anything out. Back to it. Okay, digital content, digital church. Yes.
Digital church. Not being the quote unquote real church. And I get that, you know, that's where we have a balance. You know, some people are like, oh no, people need the building. And I'm like, yes, we can do both and we don't have to do, you know, either or anymore.
Yep.
And I love the fact that David came up with the we're a digital church with in-person options.
Yeah.
I love that. When he saw that, I exploded on the inside. Like, yes, that's what we're talking about. But yeah, I was working for a previous church, man. Just a little quick story that did not want to do online. Didn't think it was needed. I was always talking to him like, man, 4 or 5 years from now, this is going to be a thing. Like, you're going to need this. It's not a real church. You know? The Bible says. I'm like, all right.
Or great, that sounds amazing. Here's $300.
Like,
When people see, I mean, I remember one time it was like, we need $1,000 of SDI cable, just cable.
Yeah.
And they were like, isn't there a cheaper option? And I was like, no, there is not.
No,
there's not.
You can't.
I'm really sorry.
You can't.
It's very expensive.
It's some things that you can't just cheap out on.
Yeah.
And that's laundry detergent, cereal, and SDI cables. Like you can't just go cheap on those things.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. But it is, convincing the team, and especially years ago, it's like, well, it might be, but you know, there's a little bit of like head patting that happens. Like, it's a cool idea, but you know,
and you can't. You know, sometimes it's your elder board, and it's your pastor, and you can't you don't want to be mean or whatever, but sometimes you just got to be firm and just be like, hey, we cannot cheap out.
And you got to figure out how to communicate.
You got to figure out how to communicate. Yeah.
Like, I always say my
Ryan's
favorite
a great
line,
communicator.
Yes.
I am not. I would be upset at every time somebody tells me no. But,
yes, and my favorite line when it comes to approaching your elder board or a leadership team about your idea is, you are not entitled to their excitement about your idea.
Ooh.
So you walk in there and you tell them your idea and they're not excited. That's not their fault. That's your fault. And you're like, okay, what can I do to rework my idea?
Dang,
what didn't I do to communicate that?
I gotta get
it's
that.
like, it's really, really important. So walking in there without a sense of entitlement is huge. That's a side note when we're talking about online church. But if you're having a hard time getting your leadership on board, look at the way that you're communicating. Maybe you need to tell stories. You and I have talked about it.
Yeah.
If you have a story of somebody's life being changed online, bring that, write it out, print it out, give it to your pastor and go, look at this story of somebody who is engaging online. one of the biggest things for us is we found this family
I was just
in our
about to
church.
ask, can we talk about them?
Yeah, this family in our church, and we found out that they have been in quarantine for like 6 or 8 years or something like that, because their family has these really intense autoimmune diseases. So they're like, we've been watching online for years. We can't come to your church. And they were so thankful for COVID because they were like, finally, everyone is experiencing what we're going through.
Man, bro.
And we keep saying this thing, and our pastor will say it. It's like, even if it's just for that family, like even if we do all this work and it's just for that family. Why? Because that was bringing some heart into digital online church. We started to really put names, faces, stories to the numbers of people that were watching. And in my experience, you could slide a piece of paper across the table that goes, we've got 10,000 people watching every Sunday. Yeah. That does not move the needle half as much as one poignant story of people's lives.
And that was really the fuel to my fire. That was really my motivation, is when I got a Facebook message from that family asking when is it going to come back up. Or it was during the time where we just got on. It wasn't like excuse me, we wasn't quite COVID-ish yet, it was like,
and we were
February.
missing. It was like
it was just dropping, and we kind of, and I'll be honest, like we kind of didn't care. Not in a bad way. It was just like, oh, we'll get it up and running on the next time, or it was like, we put in this complaint with the company that we did have, and like we didn't hear back from them like a Tuesday till like Tuesday or Wednesday, which is their normal business hours. We can't fault them for that. So we had to go with a company that that was there on Sunday and that could respond better, that can help us out at the time that we need it. Because I hated getting messages from that family. At that time, I didn't know who they were. And it was just like another family was like, hey, is it going up? When is it coming up? This is our, we can only watch. We can't come to service. And I didn't know why at that time. But it really like broke something in me. Like, hey, if we go down, people are really not getting there. Jesus.
Well, and it's community. Like, and at the end of the day, it's like, why do stories move people more? Because if we're being honest, we're moved more by stories than numbers. We live in a high value. We live in a culture that has a high value for numbers. But sometimes numbers don't tell the story. And you have to hear stories from people of their lives being changed. And I think the balance that we started to come to is, online church is so important. And it's only important because we can change people's lives through it, bring the gospel to it. We could tell people about Jesus through it. Like that why is the reason why we kept going. That is the thing that will keep you innovating. That's the thing that's going to keep you investing money. All the things that we were talking about, it rises and falls on the Great Commission. It's like we're using this for the Great Commission. And I think at the same time in 2020, digital church taught us a real value for in-person church too, which I know sounds like a contradictory sort of idea in this podcast. But for me, we just had somebody in our congregation that I really was like, I think they're theologically solid. I think they're high level of leadership in our church. And last month they came to us and they're like, I don't know if I'm still a Christian and I'm going to leave your church because you're closed-minded and all these things. And it was a family that had stayed home for a very long time. And I'm not trying to minimize COVID. I'm not trying to minimize any of that. But when you're disconnected from community, when you're disconnected from iron sharpens iron sort of community, it affects you. And the first time that we had everybody back in the room, like 2019, Ryan would have been like, whatever. Like I'm so used to worship services that it's like, this is not a big deal to me. When we got back in that room, I remember crying. Not because we like killed it on worship and it was the most amazing sermon ever. It was just hearing voices around me. It was being back in the room together, and there was something so meaningful. And I think as we're getting into 2021, it's like, yes, do online ministry. Yes, connect with people. Yes, do everything that you can to do social media and all of that. But it is not necessarily the future of the church. It's a part of the future of the church. It's a part of the future of the church. But the future of the church is still this wild and uncontrollable thing that happens in living rooms. It happens in big rooms. It happens in little sanctuaries, big sanctuaries. It happens online. But ultimately, it comes down to encountering the presence of God and living in community.
Yeah.
And if that is the goal for us, then in person is still going to be a major part of what we do moving forward.
Like it has to. Like part of my goal as one of the online campus leaders here is to convert online members and bringing them back inside the home.
Yeah.
Come on back. We need you, and we need to worship with you. I know that sounds a little contradicting. As a lot of churches, they want to have this big online presence, and that's good. It's a need for it. You can do both and.
Yeah.
But the goal is to get people back in the house of worship.
Yes.
And worship together.
And
like I think it was like 2 weeks ago, where our governor lifted everything.
Yeah.
No mask, no limits and everywhere. And then we saw our church just explode that Sunday.
Yeah.
And dude, I cried a second time, and I was hugging everybody. I didn't
know.
care.
Yeah.
I was like,
Bring it in.
Like, I'll miss you. I love you.
Yeah.
I would see. I'm seeing you all online. Now you're here today. What's up?
Yes.
It was just such an amazing feeling of having people around and having people in home. Like I keep calling it home, having people come home and just worship together and just even just to talk, man. Yeah. It was some people that didn't go inside the building because we have a courtyard where you can watch services outside, and it was people outside that they ain't going to bed. They just love just being on campus.
Yes.
It's just something about just being on campus. They're like, we don't care about going inside. Yeah, we're trying to be cautious, but it's just being here and seeing people and talking to people and loving on people and getting 6 feet apart high fives. It's just nothing beats that feeling.
Yes.
It's nothing. Like
Absolutely.
we were designed to be with each other. We weren't designed to be at home secluded. We weren't designed to be, a man should not be alone. And even if you were a family, you were still alone. I was still alone. I have 6 people in my house, and I could not stand being secluded or being inside the house for almost a year or 8 months or whatever it was. So,
yeah. So I think for us, you look at the future of the church, it still looks a lot like the past of the church. There's this beautiful thing. I love the new Maverick City album with Elevation, and that first song he's talking about the old church basement.
Yeah.
And that chorus that he sings where he's like, it's an old hallelujah with a new melody.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that's it.
That's what we're doing.
And our pastor loves the history of the church and all that. And as we're in the season that is so historical, and I do think none of us fully appreciate the revolutionary period we live in.
Yeah.
Because every period you live in feels very normal, but this is not a normal period in history. We have been dropped in to this moment in history for a reason. And I feel so excited about the future of the church. I feel so excited about digital content. I feel so excited about creative content. But I also feel excited about just the same old thing that we've been doing for years for us that have been following Jesus for decades, like getting together, worshiping together, talking about theology, iron sharpens iron sort of moments.
Yeah.
That is what the world is hungry for.
And speaking to the latter part with the new melody, like even like online ministry is just it's so revolutionary.
Yeah.
I was looking at some analytics maybe like 2 weeks ago, and I saw that people for the first time during COVID checked out a church. They would never walked on a church campus, but they got the chance to hear about these churches that people have been talking about kind of thing. And people were more apt to invite you to services and send you a link rather than knock on your door to invite you to services. And we saw a lot of that. We saw a lot of that. We saw a lot of growth. We saw a lot of. They were saying that the new millennials now they're doing this movement. Some of them they're unchurched, not new millennial, Gen Z. They're unchurched, and a lot of them were scanning through churches and checking them out, hearing them out, because some of the millennials, which are their fathers and mothers, we just stopped going to church, you know, and if we stop, our kids are not going. But the Gen Z was curious, so they're checking out these platforms and checking out these online services that they've never heard about or even talked about. So I think the new melody is it's still revolutionary. It's still, you're still reaching people. You can do both and. Don't think you have to do either or. But I will say, if you're going to invest resources in your church, in your in-person services, I would say invest the same amount or the same as much in your online digital community as well. If you look at it as the same, now if you look at it as greater than, then you invest a little bit more. If you look at it less than, then you invest a little bit less. But I would say, I would caution everybody or inspire everybody or whatever the word is. It's just say, hey, if you're going to invest this much in your in-person services, you should probably do the same for your online services as well.
Yes. Yeah. I agree with that. I agree with that. Yeah.
It's the way it's reaching people, man. I think through digital community, we're going to reach a lot more people than we have on our in-person services. Like, it's talks
We've
about
got different states and countries.
Man, like it's
all sorts of people watching,
islands that haven't even like been like touched, you know. And we can go out there, sit a TV or whatever it is, and play some Jesus for them. You know what I mean? So it's a new wave for sure.
Yeah, it's awesome. That's awesome. Cliff, so thank you so much, man, for joining the Dwell podcast.
Being here, man. Dwell.
Yeah, for all of you guys that are out there, if you got any questions, make sure and follow Cliff Cesar. If you want to know that mystery,
slide in our DMs, baby.
Slide in the DMs. Yep, send Cliff a little message. But everybody else, make sure and jump on @Dwell Worship on Instagram. Really, it's kind of the focal point for a lot of our content. Dwellconference.org is going to be we're going to have a lot more information coming out about Dwell and Dwell Conference. So make sure and check that out for any of the new things that are coming up. And make sure and rate this podcast too, wherever you're listening. Or are we on YouTube? We're on YouTube. Yeah, so YouTube, make sure you comment and like.
Every star.
Yeah, all the stars. Yeah, all the stars, all the comments, all the stuff, you know. But it really does help us, you know. If this podcast has been a blessing to you, that small step is really a big blessing for us. So thank you so much for joining us. Have an amazing week. We'll see you right back here.